Hello everyone, checking back in on the U.S. marijuana stock sector as things have settled down a bit since the votes. We had a sell the news reaction, we had a short-term weak bounce on low bull volume, a rejection from the 10-day moving average resistance, and then continued pullback. And if you go back and look at the last two videos I've done on the sector, we were looking for that low volume bounce, a lower high, a rejection from the 10-day, pullback, and for a higher low to form after that pullback, and for a tightening range to continue to form here of a little bit of a higher low, lower high pattern with a clear break signaled by a spike in volume. So I'm going to be keeping MJNA here at the top of the list because in my opinion that is the sector leader. It was the sector leader back when there were only a few companies in the marijuana US sector, and it does still see tons of volume. It's definitely one of the dollar volume leaders. So same with the Canadian sector and CGC. If you are playing any name, it is worth watching those sector leaders because oftentimes you do get a little bit of information and a little bit of a heads up as to what to expect as the correlations are strong with these stocks. So looking at the Canadian sector, if you've been watching those videos, they're still strong, and although we had a scary day last Wednesday with a lot of pullback, the bulls have remained in control. So it's pretty much the exact opposite of what I expect to happen. I expect after the bull break in Canada, for now we consolidate, we form a lower high, a higher low, a tightening range, and that's reaching an equilibrium after a breakout. And here for the US names, after the breakdown with the sell the note, and of course breakdown relatively speaking, we're still obviously well above where we were in September on a lot of these names, but the sell-off in the reaction to the vote reaction is a big pullback, and now we're seeing a lower high, higher low tightening pattern reaching an equilibrium. So Canada is reaching an equilibrium after a breakout, and the US sector is trying to reach an equilibrium after a big pullback and a lot of profit taking. So we're going to be watching the money flow. We saw the very clear money flow, in my opinion, from the US name into the from the US names into the US sector, and keeping an eye on profit taking in the Canadian sector and seeing if it will come back here to the US. So starting with MJNA, we had the bullish candlestick follow through, but again, compare the bear volume to the bull volume. That bull volume didn't even really come close to that 2 days of sell-off that we had in mid-November. Rejecting from the 10-day moving average resistance multiple days in a row, lower highs and lower lows, an increase in volume on Friday. Some of that was the bulls buying the dip. We're defending that 10-cent level, 10.3, and I think in the last video I'd have to go back and watch it, but I believe I said I expected a higher low to form in the 10 to 11 cent range, and now we'll see if the bulls head back up. In order to see a bullish break of this current pattern we have the very clear high, the pullback low, lower high, lower low, lower high, now a higher low potentially, and the bulls have to get above 14.5 to break the lower high pattern. If we get above 14.5, we're looking up at 20 cents as the next resistance, but we're going to need that bull volume to come with it in order to get above these moving average resistances and make a move back towards that lower high resistance. If we break the low of Friday, 10.3, this 50-day moving average support will be the next level to watch in the low 9-cent range, and we did bounce off of that the last time we tested it. The weekly time frame shows this consolidation. We have an inside candlestick forming compared to the previous candlestick with a lot wider range 2 weeks ago. Last week, that range is tightening up. We lost the upper Bollinger Band support, so we were above the upper Bollinger Band. We broke out for 5 weeks in a row. We lost it 2 weeks ago. We back tested and rejected from it last week. And now with this inside candlestick, if on this coming week, if we break 10.3, we're expecting a bearish week. And if we break 14.5, we're expecting a bullish week. That's the general simplified version of how to play inside candlesticks, utilizing the range of that inside candle. So we'll see how it plays out, but we know the upper Bollinger Band is resistance, but we're still strong on the weekly. Higher lows and higher highs certainly still in place, and keeping a close eye on that low of 0.071. That is the level that the bulls want to hold really for the next month or so to establish that higher low and keep that support. CBIS on the daily time frame, it's not too weak. And again, now I'm looking at, after I did the sector leader first, MJNA, now I ranked the rest in what I believe is the strongest to the weakest on the daily charts. And again, I know people love to say that I have bearish positions. I think anybody in a bearish position in the most explosive penny stock sector that we've seen in a decade is an absolute fool. I would never play these names bearish. Just because I'm doing a video on these names does not mean I have a position. If you look at my channel, I do dozens and dozens of videos every week, and I couldn't possibly be playing everything that I cover. I feel that my unbiased opinion in names that I have no position in is much more valuable than a potential biased position, which is what you'll find on a lot of social media. So CBIS, same lower high, lower low pattern. Now we have another lower high here at 0.053. Declining bull volume, rejection from the 10-day resistance, trying to form a higher low compared to the low of the pullback of 0.0282, and that's a must-hold level for the bulls to try and turn this trend around. And they too need to see a break of this 0.053 level to break the lower high pattern, get back above the 10-day and the middle Bollinger Band resistances, and head to the upside. And the difference between MJNA and CBIS, look at the big upper wick on Friday, rejecting from the 10-day, lots of profit taking, closed fairly close to the low of the day, much different than the shape of the MJNA candlestick, which shows the bulls buying the dip with that lower wick. So definitely difference between those two in that regard. The 50-day moving average is a lot closer for CBIS. That's going to be at about 0.035 or higher to start this next week. Close below that 50-day is a red flag and will have us looking down at 0.0282. Weekly time frame for CBIS. Lost the upper Bollinger Band last week, lost the 200-week moving average. Now we back tested and rejected from that 200-week moving average. That's at 5 cents. And we're looking down. Really, the only support here on the weekly time frame, I'm looking at the low of last week, 0.0362, 0.0358, the low of 2 weeks ago, and then down to that 0.0282, really important level to hold. Any name that breaks the low of 2 weeks ago is going to stand out as a very clear, more bearish name compared to those that have still held that support. MSRT, very nice uptrend in the sense that it's building supports the entire way up. Every time we pulled back and established a higher low, we built a base of support. This is a much stronger trend than a stock that just sees 5 huge breakout days in a row, and the pullback is a lot less severe because of these supports that are built. So we've got 0.0489, let's see here, 0.61. Okay, wrong here. So let's do that again. 0.489. 0.61, 0.72, 0.75, and now we have our high. It's more like a double top. We topped out at 108, 108, 108, triple top, and now we're pulling back. So it's a very clear resistance the bulls have to break out again. So, and then we broke that higher low pattern when we lost 0.75 support. We dropped down here to 0.66. So that was a clear bearish signal once 0.75 broke. And since then, we've been consolidating in this channel. This is the 100-day moving average support. Now the 50-day is right there as well. That's at 67 cents in that range. We bounced off of that at the low of this pullback. Same thing. Look at the bull volume on that 2-day bounce. Very weak. And you can see these correlations. Pretty much every single daily chart has that MJNA pattern where we have the low volume, 2 days of bullish action, and then further consolidation. So same thing for MSRT, but the difference is Friday was a very bullish day. We closed at the high of the day, which bodes well heading into next week. And you can see the range getting tighter and tighter and tighter. And this resistance, we have the 10-day, 200-day, and 20-day all in the same area, 0.833 and 0.861. So we need to get above those moving average resistances, break the high of this bounce attempt, 0.86, and that will turn around the short-term consolidation trend that we've been seeing. So again, generalization for the entire U.S. sector, any name that breaks the low of last week or 2 weeks ago is bearish, and any name that breaks the high of the first little bounce attempt here, those 2 green days in a row, will be bullish. And that's going to separate the bulls from the bears this week, most likely. MSRT on the weekly time frame never really had a clear breakout above the upper Bollinger Band. And now we're pulling back a bit, seeing resistances. We've got the 50-week resistance, the upper Bollinger Band resistance. So not a entirely strong weekly chart. And you can zoom back and see we are very clearly in a downtrend, still setting lower highs. The bulls would have to get above 167 to see a higher high on the longer-term weekly time frame. So that is a long way away from happening. GRNH. This is the one of the weaker names. Now we're getting into the weaker name section, and that is because of how significant this profit taking has been. And look at the size of the bear volume on the low of this pullback. So we had the nice strong uptrend, and then very clearly for the past month, it's been lower highs and lower lows. So we had that same bounce attempt, big green candlestick, but compare the bull volume to the bear volume, they're not even comparable. So that shows the bears are still in control. Increase in bear volume with a close near the low of the day. Very weak close Friday compared to MSRT, which had a very strong close on Friday. So GRNH, look at all these rejections from the 10-day moving average resistance. I'm seeing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 times we've gotten right to that 10-day moving average and been unable to close the day above that level. So that is 0.087 cents. The level for the bulls to break to see upside is 10 cents. That's the high of this bounce attempt. And the low down here, 0.06. 0.0601 was a little double bottom where we did establish a base of support. So you can see the range is tightening between that 10-day resistance and this 0.06 support. And we're going to see a make or break for the bulls or the bears in the coming week, most likely as this range continues to tighten. GRNH on the weekly time frame, you can see 4 red weeks in a row. No other name has been that clearly bearish for 4 weeks in a row. And we are seeing the lower wick, lower high pattern very clearly and watching for that to break to let us know the bulls are back in town. But we need to see a bullish reversal candlestick, and we close the week down at the low. So that does indicate weakness. The 20-week moving average support, the middle Bollinger Band, is 0.07. So we'll be watching that support. And the bulls need to break, just like everybody else, they need to break that lower high pattern. What stands out to me here, look how strong this 100-day moving average resistance was. This is actually the 100-week, the pink line. Look at all these rejections. Time and time again, we got over that, and that was where the breakout occurred. Look at the back test. We bounced right above that support level. Previous resistance, now acting as strong support. That's a key level for the longer-term bulls to watch and hold. TRTC. Same pattern. So we have the lower high attempting to continue to the upside, 0.56 high, lower high at 0.541. Big volume bear pullback. Bounce attempt, 2 days of green, decreasing bull volume, not even comparing to the bear volume, followed by 4 days of red. And this is another one that shows tons of weakness at the end of the day. An increase in volume, almost a red Maribozu candlestick, which shows the bears in control the entirety of the day from the open to the close. We close down near the low, which has us anticipating further downside to start this coming week. So that clear support, 344, needs to hold, and the clear resistance is the high of the little bounce attempt at 0.43. So again, now that we're going through all this and we're 12 minutes into the video, you can see just how similar every single name is, and we're all looking for the same thing, a bull break and a higher high, or a bear break and a break of the consolidation low. On the weekly chart for TRTC, we have a tightening pattern in the sense that we didn't even break the high of April, and that certainly stands out because it had a very big breakout in April. Not many other names had that clear breakout, so we still have resistance levels to be watching, and we have a clear support down here. Besides that 0.344 level, we're looking down here at 0.271. So it does have more support on the weekly time frame because of that earlier breakout, building these bases of support over the past 6 months or so. And we look at some of these other names, GRNH, it too has that base of support that was built over the past 6 months. MSRT doesn't. That's a much weaker weekly chart for the longer term trend. So my focus is on these daily charts in this video. But if you're long and you're looking for multiple months, look at the trends on the weekly. MSRT can't even compare to GRNH and TRTC because it doesn't have that base of support over the past 6 months. CBIS does have that base. It's a long way away. We're well above that. But it did build that base of support over the past 6 months, as did MJNA before that clear breakout. So in that regard, MSRT is clearly the weakest at this point on the weekly time frame. So getting into hemp, final one here, wrapping it up. Hemp probably had the least impressive reaction. Well, I won't say the least because there are 300 stocks in this sector now. But it was very lackluster. And here we are, the low of this pullback. We came back and we were hitting the price we saw at the end of September. Look at all the other daily charts, the low of the pullback. Some of them were hitting the price in the end of December, or the end of September, I should say. TRTC was another one. GRNH, not so much. Didn't see that significant pullback to look to that time frame. MSRT, not so much. CBIS. So again, you're comparing all of these time frames and watching where the price is to where it was previously. And for hemp, we gave back all of that breakout essentially and came back down to 26 cents here. So we have the clear lower high, lower low pattern. The low and the must hold level is 0.26. That was a double bottom as well. Bull volume very low compared to the bear volume on the bounce attempt. Rejected from the 10-day moving average resistance. Trying to hold support at 3 cents. We have not closed below 3 cents the past 4 days. If we close below 3 cents, we can expect to head back down towards 0.026. And the bulls need to break 0.037 to see that lower high pattern break for the bulls. Look at the volume. Very clear declining volume pattern over the past 6-7 days, showing the range getting tighter and tighter. Watch for a break in that declining volume pattern to indicate short-term direction, whether it be for the bulls or the bears. So that was a mouthful. That's the rundown going into this coming week. And again, if you're new to charts and fascinated and interested in learning, go back and watch the previous 2 videos I did. And not saying, look at me, I was right, but just saying, look at what the charts were able to let us know was most likely to happen, and look how it ended up playing out. So I appreciate you watching, and we'll see how the week goes. I'm going to be watching very closely the IPO for the New York Stock Exchange, IIPR, this Tuesday, and I'll check back in on the sector likely before the weekend. Have a great rest of your weekend. See you soon.